To my English-speaking listeners, this is just a short message to my French-speaking listeners. Chers auditeurs et chères auditrices, le podcast prend enfin la dimension que je lui destinais depuis le début. Il devient bilingue. Cet épisode sera exclusivement en anglais, comme le seront quelques prochains, mais si vous n'êtes pas à l'aise avec cette langue, je rappelle que l'option YouTube vous permet d'avoir accès à des sous-titres en français. Aussi, je vous rappelle que l'Hymne à la Daube a désormais un Patreon sur lequel vous pouvez contribuer un petit peu à la bonne continuation du podcast en échange d'exclusivités sur les épisodes, comme l'annonce au préalable des invités, quelques images et les coulisses des enregistrements. Merci beaucoup à ceux qui contribuent déjà et merci d'avance aux autres et très très bon épisode à toutes et tous. Ode to Crap, podcast aiming to abolish the idea of good and bad taste in music, because it's about time we give credit to music in general. Flight is a band from London, and they just released their second album called This Is Really Going to Hurt. They've mastered pop and folk music since 2017, when their first album came out. Today, I'm having singer-songwriter Will from Flight. This is a very special episode to me, as it is the very first episode I have recorded in English. I don't know if any of you guys have been listening to this podcast before, but if you haven't, I also have a YouTube channel and I write French and English subtitles on each episode to make sure everyone understands what's going on. L'Hymne à la Daube, which literally translates to Ode to Crap, is a podcast I have created in order to ask artists to come and tell me about crappy track they love, knowing they can't play it at a party because they know everybody would hate it. If you need more information before you start this episode, go and check out the very first one. I made it so I can explain the whole thing properly with my own crap. Let's get started now. You may have heard of Flight before, as their first album, The Loved Ones, was released in 2017. You can hear this tune, Cathy Come Home, on this album. But you may have heard of them also because they just released their second album, This Is Really Going to Hurt, on which you can hear the single Losing You. With walls that catch the city light. Just tell me you want me, I don't care if it's true, 'cause I don't think I'll get used to losing you. Hi Will.
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very good. I'm in my mum's shed.
Awesome, me too.
I had to escape. Are you also in your mum's shed?
Exactly.
No, I had to escape London life. I'd seen one too many people take a shit on the street.
Like literally.
Yeah, no, quite literally. I live in a on a corner of Hackney where there are a fair few people that,
take shit.
like to do that. I was this is a great way to start a podcast, isn't it? I was one shit over the line, so I needed to escape and I got on the train and I'm at my mum's house.
Sorry to say, but we're going to talk about shit a bit more though, because I'm going to ask you.
Very fitting.
Exactly.
Fitting.
I just need to ask you what your crap is today.
So I'm going with Stupid Ho.
Bye.
It's a song by the recording artist Nicki Minaj.
Exactly.
Look, Bubbles, go back to your habitat.
I definitely would like to kind of state a case for this particular track having its merits.
Mm-hmm.
You reached out and you said, this is going to be talking about a guilty pleasure, a song that you wouldn't want to put on, or you wouldn't necessarily be allowed to put on, in a room full of your friends.
Exactly.
And it was actually a really hard question because I don't really have much shame about, listening to whatever I want to listen to. And if it's like a genre that I shouldn't be allowed to like, I think there's always a redeeming element of, there are always tracks that transcend genre. There's always, you can't flat out say you don't like a genre. I think people who are saying that are being dogmatic, and they're too caught up in their own narrative and their own ego.
Yeah.
And you need to be able to admit that there are certain songs that transcend that, and in that sense, I've had I think a fairly healthy attitude towards songs that some may deem not suitable.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, is my guilty pleasure an ABBA song or something like that, and then but then I was like, well, yeah, ABBA's corny, but like, is it even corny these days? I think maybe it was corny to people at the time because of
exactly.
punk being
I think
so
it's cool now.
a new wave and like actually coming around for the first time. I think it's not that it's cool or it's uncool. I think what the nice thing that time can do to music is it can just separate the wheat from the chaff, and you can look at something like ABBA and say they were just, whether like it or not, they were brilliant at what they were doing. They did the best possible job at making this incredibly accessible, more often than not disco infused pop music.
Yeah.
Inspewed. I kind of feel that way about this Nicki Minaj track too, but at the same time, I think because it's such an offensive track on so many levels, like it's,
I know.
like in terms of the language it's using, it's deeply aggressive and unpleasant.
Yeah.
And the music is incredibly aggressive and unpleasant. And the video is very aggressive and unpleasant. Like everything about it is quite harrowing.
It is.
It's kind of like a nightmare, this track. But I chose it because I guess it's something I genuinely wouldn't necessarily want to put on in most situations.
Yeah, I understand that. But so what is it about this song that makes you like it then?
Well, I think being aggressive and harrowing and unpleasant, those things are real. Those things happen.
Yeah.
I'm concerned often that people are beginning to divorce themselves from the purpose of art as a broad concept. Far too often these days, especially in our generation, I worry deeply that people think that portraying something unpleasant or something they don't want to look at or something that might be triggering or something that is shining a light on the shadows and the darkness of how humanity is, more often than we like to admit. I think that people see that as something that should be shut down or ignored or not taken seriously or ridiculed.
Yeah.
And I think something like Nicki Minaj, she sort of stands for all the things that us European alternative bohemian left-wing kind of borderline anti-capitalist artistic types sat in our rooms doing ironic podcasts she embodies everything that we stand against.
Yeah, you're right.
And and she's got the big fake hair and the big fake boobs, and gets in these bitchy feuds with other artists, and she throws cash around in her music videos and etc.
Yeah.
So I guess and I wanted to be really honest with myself about picking the guilty pleasure, quote unquote guilty pleasure, because I wanted to try and face myself and be like, what would I genuinely not want to put on? What's something that I've really enjoyed that I wouldn't want people I know to know that I like.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the closest I could get.
Yeah, exactly. But I think you're right. It sounds like an angry song, isn't it? Like it's a bit of an outlet. So I was wondering if there was like a special context you like to listen to this music in.
Yeah, well, I would put it on in the tour van. I remember putting it on around 2015. I think we were on tour around the UK, and our tour manager, so it was the guy who kind of was driving us and was kind of organising the nitty gritty stuff of the tour.
Yeah.
And he was a fair bit older than us. He was a bit of an old punk rocker.
Yeah.
And I would put it on to kind of annoy everyone, but then secretly enjoy myself. And the thing about the tour van was that we had the speakers in the tour van just couldn't handle bass.
Oh, right.
You know,
okay.
So we had to, you know, and a big theme of this track is there's a constant like machine gun of bass.
Yeah.
It's not even bass, it's sub, so it's incredibly low frequency.
Yeah.
And so this kind of like the speakers that get built into the door of a transit van. You know, cheap speakers they don't have sub anyway, but the frequency was destroying the speaker, so it was like you heard this very, very unpleasant sound of like it was like someone was trying to kick in the doors of the van.
Yeah, I can picture it
throughout the entire track. So it just really enhanced this like feeling of like this is a nightmare. I want this to stop as soon as possible, which I think was really brilliant. It's like a kind of test of one's ire.
Yeah,
that song, but that was the initial context. So now I listen to it fondly on nice studio speakers where I can really appreciate the depth of the sub bass.
What was their reaction though
from the band when I played it?
Yeah, did they hate it?
No, a kind of disgust, a kind of, you know, they felt assaulted and like
all right.
They needed it to stop immediately. But then there was also like kind of like with a bad smell where you're like, we need to keep listening to it. Anyway, look, I'm being a bit extreme about this because actually I think it's this slagging track, isn't it? It's about her slagging off other people. It's kind of a mean, bully, bitchy song saying I'm the fucking best and you suck.
All the way.
It's a kind of diss track.
Yeah.
So very much in that kind of traditional vein, and something you've heard countless times in like the world of hip hop and rap and stuff. It's a very familiar theme. But the reason I love this particular track, and I'm not, I have to say, that keen on anything else she's done. I think this particular track I love because every tiny ounce of this track is geared towards making you feel what she's saying.
Yeah.
You know, it is like someone is bullying you. It is like someone's being nice. And it's so addictive and so delicious and clever, fucking genius production. There's so few instruments in this track.
I know.
There's a sub bass.
Yeah.
There's the vocal sample, which is the one that's kind of going whoop whoop.
Exactly.
Whoop,
yeah, the whole
whoop,
way.
all the way through. And then there's a kind of mid-frequency percussive element.
And that's it.
That's it. And that's what like Timbaland pioneered so well, is being able to use like 2-3 elements. And it's sort of minimalism, I suppose, that makes like anyone who's kind of arranged music, like recorded music, knows that like the more you add to something, the smaller it could potentially sound, because, you know, there's only so much space in a mix. And, you know, if there's 10 instruments vying for attention, what they do is they reduce the overall feeling. And if you have 1 or 2 things or 3 things, then it's going to sound enormous because there's all this space for these things to breathe.
Yeah.
So it's a really good example of that happening.
So basically you're saying you're enjoying being bullied, really, listening to this song.
I just think as a piece of art, I think it's flawless. I think it's absolutely perfect. And it's just so clever. And yeah, like, so for instance, Flight does this film night every Wednesday night.
Yeah.
Where, you know, we'll pick a film and our, you know, some of our fans will tune in and we'll do this Netflix party thing and we'll watch a film together, and it's really nice, and there's a chat section and everyone can talk in the sidebar. And I just remember there was a film, an Andrea Arnold film, which I was excited to show everyone. And it's called Fish Tank. It's a really brilliant film.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. And it just slightly worried me because I remember there was a very strong reaction from quite a few people watching. Because for people who haven't seen the film, the kind of main premise is that Michael Fassbender, his first or one of his really early roles, is this girl's mum's boyfriend who's kind of come into the scene.
Yep.
And this girl, our protagonist, is about 15 years old. But she clearly kind of fancies this mum's boyfriend. The mum is awful to her.
Yeah.
and then the Michael Fassbender, the boyfriend's kind of seeing this 15-year-old girl and being tempted, and then it kind of escalates, and it's really uncomfortable and inappropriate.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant, what one might call a kind of archetypal British gritty film that we do so well here for some reason. But
True.
Although the French do it too. I mean, you fucking did Irreversible.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you know how to top us.
I hate it.
Yeah. But the thing with people's reaction to that film that worried me a little bit was it wasn't, oh, this is fascinating, there's a darkness here, this is an uncomfortable thing to watch.
Yeah.
But it's important that films shine a light on what happens in real life, and that's the point of art. And it's not.
Yeah.
We're not watching Shrek 2,
Exactly.
And people just couldn't handle it. And they were kind of going, ew, and like, oh, it's so creepy and gross, and then like having to like tune out and like leave the film.
Really?
Yeah, and it's just, I was just like, well,
that's the point.
It's not. There's the whole bloody point of, and this is the thing with the Nicki Minaj track. It's like it's supposed to offend you. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to make you want to turn it off, but almost not. It's supposed to exasperate you and anger you, and I love how she does it.
Interesting.
And it gets madder and weirder, and she starts to sing.
Yeah.
Which you don't hear her do that often, and it starts to be kind of maniacal. And then she pushes up and up into a falsetto, and it's just this. It's hilarious. It's so funny. It's just like a big middle finger.
Yeah. You're right.
And anyway, I just really. I've always had a soft spot for that track.
I was wondering though, because it came out in 2012, I think, so almost 10 years ago. Did you like it when it came out 10 years ago?
I think it passed me by, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think I just randomly, I can't even remember how I discovered it. It just kind of just came into my like Spotify at some point. I don't know why.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was a bit late to 212. Actually, no, I wasn't too late to... It reminded me of 212, the Azealia Banks track, which has got that same thing as Stupid Ho. It's just this big, aggressive, I'm going to chew you up and spit you out, I'm the best kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so artistically interesting and clever and minimal and brilliant. Basically, I just think an emotional honesty is what I want from everything at this point in my life.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want style...
Yeah.
That style's fine, but I don't care about style. I don't care about what they look like. I don't care about the cool PR story that people are talking about. Like, I don't care if other people like it or there's hype. It just has to have come from a place of emotional honesty. And by emotional honesty, I don't mean, someone bearing their soul and being emo in their bedrooms. I mean, like, whatever that emotion is, because that's a broad spectrum, and as long as it's, being actually true to itself and it's mining a specific emotion perfectly and letting the music fuel that, because that is way harder than people think,
I bet.
And even though theoretically I stand against everything that Nicki Minaj stands for, to my mind, a kind of mean-spirited, hypersexualized, hyper-capitalist thing, with the product placements and the shiny stuff and all the money and the
absolutely,
which all ultimately goes towards a couple of white dudes that run the music industry. It's an absolute nightmare, and I hate it with all my heart. But you can't deny how barefaced and honest a track like that is somehow, and
you're right.
And I'd hold that up higher than, say, someone who's being a bedroom singer-songwriter who's singing their little emo heart out. But like, I don't necessarily believe all the stuff you're saying. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if you've lived enough of a life to be able to emote quite that much.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Give me the truth.
Yeah, give me the truth, which is that you're actually probably quite boring and still live with your parents.
Yeah. All right, and I was asking that, like, if you would have liked it back in 2012, because when I think about myself as a teenager, I remember being like really inflexible about the things that I considered being like good music, you know.
Oh God, me too.
Yeah, I was a brat, really. I was just like...
I wish I could go back in time and be less of a piece of shit teenager.
My opinion was the right one, and I was just like, there's only Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and the rest is shit, really.
Me and you would have got on so well.
I know. But do you think you would have hated it then?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I didn't even like the Strokes and the White Stripes and the bands that people were supposed to like, if you were cool,
right.
or like all the indie stuff. Like, I was just like, well, the Beatles and Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell and Led Zeppelin are way better. Why would I listen to, like, the Hives? Do you know what I mean? I was very much of that, like, ilk, you know, and people who I'm sure I should have been friends with, who would have been at school listening to the new bands, because at least they weren't listening to, you know, Usher and Justin Timberlake and the things that were, like, happening there. Which I absolutely despised and considered like my nemesis, like my spiritual nemesis.
Obviously. Evil, yeah.
Yeah, American kind of, you know, MTV consumer capitalism made manifest. I was so blinkered and so close-minded, but then actually secretly even now, pretty glad, because I really still basically just think the Beatles and Bob Dylan and Led Zeppelin and Joni Mitchell and Nina Simone and Elvis Costello and The Cure and The Smiths and Radiohead are the ones that we can listen to, and you can kind of do without all the other stuff.
I know. I'm trying to change, and I think I did change a bit, but still, I mean, it's the Beatles all the way.
We can't change our hearts.
Oh, that is a good title for a song, though.
We can't change our hearts. It's all right. Someone else can have it.
Why do you think? Because I don't know if you saw that there are like more dislikes under the music video than likes on Stupid Ho by Nicki Minaj.
Really?
People hate it more than they like it, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you think it's just because of all the things you just said, because it is like genuinely annoying, or is it just because of all the things she represents, just like you said?
Yeah, it's because people can't handle the truth. that most, you know, a huge section of the entire world are horrible, flawed, vicious individuals. And all she's doing is holding up a mirror to the world, and they do not like what they see. You know, that's why they've clicked the dislike button.
She is a mirror herself.
Yeah.
But I think she's actually been, like you said, like she's been offensive. But this song was written more specifically to all the female people who disliked her.
Yeah, you can hear that in the verse lyrics.
But
which I suppose wouldn't be deemed as like supporting the sisterhood.
I know. It's not ideal, is it? Because like she's being mean to Jennifer Aniston, for example.
Yeah, don't be mean to Jen. Okay,
I know.
Right, cancelled.
That's it, you're out. But yeah, now that you said that, actually, I think I will listen to it again, because I think that is exactly why I did not like this song, because I did listen to it when you told me that you picked this one, because I didn't really know any other stuff, you know, and I hated it.
Yeah, good reaction, yeah.
And yeah, you're right. I think I'll just like give it another listen. But yeah, it's interesting. Can you picture Fly doing like a cover of this song?
No, because it's not my truth. I wouldn't wear it well.
It is not your truth. You're right.
I wouldn't wear it well at all. I think it would be an awful look. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because with Radio 1 Live Lounge, have you heard of that? It's like a thing the BBC do where it's on the main radio station, Radio 1, and, you know, artists of the day will go on and cover... Well, I think they'll play their single, and then they'll play a cover of another artist. And normally the tradition is to cover an artist that maybe is in the charts, but not their style. So like Arctic Monkeys might do a cover of, you know, Taylor Swift or something, you know.
I'd pay for that.
You know, or Kings of Leon might do a Justin Bieber cover. I don't think it would ever go quite that far, but, you know, and everyone goes, oh my God, I've never Actually, that Taylor Swift song's quite deep, actually, when you actually hear the real lyrics and you hear, some real musicians sing those lyrics.
When Alex Turner says it, it's different.
It's better. We like it now. It's just like, idiot. I think the whole thing's a bit of a farce, to be honest. But anyway, I've always thought if we were ever asked to play Radio 1 Live Lounge, which we have not.
You will.
Well, maybe it's too bloody late now. But if they were to ask, I don't know, I just feel really uncomfortable. I find it difficult singing flight songs that I don't relate to anymore.
Are there songs that you actually don't relate to anymore? Songs you wrote?
Well, I mean, I remember relating to them at the time, but there's songs that I'm just like, I don't feel this way now.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to really struggle to like give everyone the best performance that I would ideally give them. And so I do worry. And with covers, if we've ever covered a song, it's because that song is in my heart. I wish I'd written that song because that's how I feel. That's when I want to cover a song. I never want to cover, ironically cover Justin Bieber because he's in the charts right now and it would make my like TikTok following go up. That's when I would know it was time to quit.
Yeah, makes sense. So what do you think you would cover then? Like, if you were asked right now to do that?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to like sit down and pore through the charts, which would be a horrible experience, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And just try and locate something where it actually connected with me personally, so I would be able to actually put myself into the song. I think one of my great nightmares was always the X Factor thing of the judges giving these poor souls these songs that they'd chosen for them, and because it's just about them having a chance to show how high they can sing, or like how many twiddles they can do, or
it's bad.
How they hold their mic or whatever, and and how sad their background story is, or all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, well, you don't. It sounds like you are technically singing this song.
Yeah.
And well done. Have a gold star, but I don't believe you.
Yeah.
For a second, and it's just that's the difference. I guess.
Know. And yeah.
And I don't know. It's taken me a really long time to realize like that's how I react to music, and probably most people do.
Yeah.
It takes it's taken way too long for me to realize that's all it comes down to. Like that's the only reason, that's the only point of doing it in the first place, is to have actually plugged in emotionally to something and have had a genuine moment of truth and honesty.
Yeah, honesty.
If that's not happening, then it's just not.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. It's a waste of bloody time.
Understandable. Yeah, I agree with you.
And okay, I'll pull back now and say that entertainment has value, and people connect with those songs, and hearing those songs sung to them live in any format is amazing. Is the reason why Beatles cover bands do so well, and that's great, and that's all good. But it's not for me. Like I'm not gonna pay money to go and see someone like regurgitate something for money.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to pay to see someone again be real, truthful, like connect, be brave.
Yeah, but would you go and see Paul McCartney play the Beatles?
Would I go and see Paul McCartney play? Probably not. No, and I haven't. I don't really pass like McCartney too, to be honest. Which is like what, 1980?
Yeah.
Because he's Paul McCartney. He's fucking Paul McCartney. He's my hero. But like, we can't continue to try and like something just because that's false idols. That isn't it? That's hero worship.
Yeah.
It's all very well. He can be wheeled out for these album cycles and do all this press, and young artists can do a collaboration with them and feel incredible and say that they've worked with Paul McCartney and everything. It's all blah blah blah. But I mean, it is just it's diminishing the quality of his early work day by day, isn't it? Let's face it.
Rough. If you were offered a ticket to go and see Nicki Minaj perform that one song only because you don't like the rest of her work, would you go?
So there's this weird gig where it's just me and it's just her, and she's just going to play this one song. Because I like that. I would do that because that sounds weird and cool.
No, that is so weird. No, obviously she would do like a regular gig and everybody would be there, but you would be allowed to just go for that one song because you'd be bored during the rest of the gig anyway. So
well, maybe I wouldn't be bored. Maybe I'd learn something. I'm far more interested. I'm far more interested in going to a Nicki Minaj concert than I am a Paul McCartney concert because I think I might like at the very least learn something.
Wow.
Going to a Nicki Minaj concert. Do you know what I mean? If I went to see Paul, I know exactly what that would be like. You know, I've been very fortunate to be on the bill, like because there's a lot of shows that happen in Hyde Park, and you'll get like you'll get an old classic come and headline your Stevie Wonders, your Paul Simons, your Neil Youngs, your Bruce Springsteens, your Carole Kings. All those people I've just listed, I've been on the bill with for those Hyde Park shows. So, you've got our name kind of on the same poster as Bob Dylan and Neil Young or whatever doing the thing. Like that's all stuff that teenage me would have been like, what the absolute fuck? I mean, even though it's like we weren't even playing on the same stage, we were playing on like the medium stage opposite, like 3 hours before. But that would have been enough for me. I would have lost my mind. But even then, the reality is, more often than not, they're not that psyched about being there. The show is just walking through the hits fairly lovelessly.
Yeah.
The sound isn't very loud, so it's not like we're getting, because it's all really restricted in Hyde Park. and Stevie Wonder was great for 3 songs, and then he talked about God for like 10 minutes, and then he lost the kind of liberal metropolitan audience, and they all kind of slowly started walking away. And the only person I'd say in that realm that I have gone multiple times to and watched and loved is Springsteen.
All right.
Because he's someone who is always connected and always plugged in, like to himself. You see it on stage. He's not doing anything in half measures. He's not relaxing.
Yeah.
Into like, right, okay, we got some time. We can cruise on this. Like, he's never lowering the key so he can just have an easier time for himself, and he's never, letting the rest of the band kind of take over for a bit while he kind of has a sandwich. He's leaning forward into that audience for 4 hours straight, and it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. You're right.
And
he's into it.
Yeah. But anyway, to answer your question, if Nicki Minaj concert, I'd be fascinated to. I've never seen a show that's like a contemporary American like pop act doing their big arena show. I've never seen that.
Must be impressive.
I've never. I mean, just for the sheer scale of the pyrotechnics and the set designs and the choreography and stuff. Like, I'm sure it's actually a really entertaining thing to watch. And in the way that I'm entertained by Stupid How, I listen to it in headphones and I'm just entertained by it. I'm kind of terrified by it, and I'm probably way too in my head whilst listening to it. But like, there's just something about it. This is really, just gets to me. I'm entertained.
Okay, well, that's perfect. I think that is like the perfect crap, actually, because artists that come on my podcast usually pick a song that reminds them of like their childhood or like another time, it's just more about a memory of things like that. And you picked something that is actually like very genuine, it is something that you're feeling fully, and I think it's interesting because it is a song that you kind of hate, but that's what makes you like it so much.
Yeah. Oh, I gave you the wrong answer then, didn't I, ultimately?
No, you didn't. That is the perfect answer.
Okay.
So,
I'll take it. Well, great. Well, it's been a very fun conversation, I have to say.
That was great. So, thank you, Will.
Thank you very much for having me.
And I've loved
this.
Bye.
Bye.